If you've been looking for a high-end gaming PC but need portability or simply don't have the room for a desktop setup, the MSI GE76 Raider is worth a look. As soon as you open the lid, you are presented with a laptop that is not only the fastest gaming laptop available from MSI, but one that feels incredibly comfortable to use. The metal deck feels sturdy and cool to the touch, and the palm rests are large enough to comfortably rest your wrist for an extended period of time. The SteelSeries keyboard is well spaced. I'm able to easily touch type and game without hitting anything accidentally, and the keys have a ton of travel distance with good feedback. MSI is utilizing all of the available space with the inclusion of a full number pad, all with per key RGB lighting that is bright and easily customizable. Now, I'm not a fan of the font choice and the placement of a few commonly used secondary functions. Still, the typing experience is one of my favorites from the gaming laptops I've tested this year. Below that, the trackpad feels a bit small by 2021 standards. However, it is still very responsive with a smooth texture and a satisfying audible mechanical click. Once you get started on some games or work, you will have plenty of ports to hook up all of your peripherals. On the left, there is one USB-A, a USB-C 3.2 Gen 2 port, and a headphone jack. On the right, there are two more USB-A 3.1 ports and a full-sized SD card slot. Then on the back, a mini display port, USB-C Thunderbolt 4 port, Ethernet, HDMI 2.1, and a power connector. It's nice to have display and power connections on the back to never get in the way and still have the frequently used ports easily accessible on the sides. Now, I like the overall look of this laptop. The titanium blue with the color matched logo keeps the whole design feel understated, but it still looks unique without being loud. If you want more color, there is a customizable RGB bar across the front of the chassis. In my opinion, it looks much classier in person than the marketing images, with a frosted black glass effect. The four speakers also sound pretty good, especially when compared to other laptops in this class. They can get pretty loud, but can begin to have a tinny sound when at those higher volumes. They also lack the bass and depth that you hear in some of the best laptop speakers, like the MacBook Pro 16. When it's time to work or game, the display's extremely fast 360Hz refresh rate will give you a competitive advantage, and makes navigating the operating system for general computing tasks feel smooth and snappier than ever. I purchased the 1080p 360Hz option, but there are 1440p and 4K options as well. The 17.3-inch display feels roomy and large, making it easier to locate and track targets in competitive shooters or to see all the details in story-driven games. It's a large enough screen for multitasking, although if productivity is your core focus, you would be better served with a higher resolution panel. When gaming on the internal display, you can utilize the full performance of this machine by using the Mux switch to directly connect your graphics card to the display and disable Optimus. This will lead to lower battery life, but can be easily enabled or disabled in software, only requiring a restart once changed. Out of the box, the 1080p display's color accuracy and overall quality is more than enough for games and movies, but it doesn't have a high enough coverage to recommend for color-sensitive work. The large matte screen does a good job minimizing screen glare, but as you move out to the bezels, I can't help but to feel like some of the aspects are beginning to feel dated. The left and right bezels are fairly thin, but the large chin makes me wish they would have utilized that space with a 16:10 aspect ratio screen. The top bezel houses a 1080p webcam with a passable image quality. It's not high quality, but it is enough for conference calls and video chats. Now, as games become more demanding, you'll want the specs to keep up. I opted for an i9 11980HK, a 165W RTX 3080, 32 gigs of RAM, and a 1TB SSD. Clearly, this is a spec'd out machine that will last a long time and keep up with any games you throw at it. Unsurprisingly, it does not come cheap at $3,400 as configured here. Having the 11th gen processor and RTX 3080, this machine has massive performance in any game I throw at it in 1080p. The 3080 is utilized even further in higher resolutions, easily outclassing the next gen consoles when hooked up to a 4K TV or monitor. If you want to squeeze out every bit of performance, there is a manual tuning option in addition to the balanced, silent, super battery, and extreme performance presets in the MSI software. All of my benchmarks have been made with the extreme performance option. To help keep temperatures down, MSI is using a traditional paste and heatsink design. The large 2 fans can get loud as it's pushing a lot of air, notably louder than my X17, without any whining noises. I would like to see what they could accomplish with a more robust cooling design, like what Alienware or Razer is doing with liquid metal and vapor chambers. But what's here works well, so I can't complain. Like most gaming laptops, the top of the keyboard deck does get hot during gaming sessions, but I've always found the palm rest and WASD keys to stay cool and comfortable. As for expandability, the 1TB of storage should be enough to install a wide selection of games and software. Once you need more space, it is easily expandable with a second M.2 slot. The 32 gigs of RAM is also more than enough memory for today's titles, and enough for RAM-dependent software such as video editing. It can also be upgraded when needed. Weighing in at over 6 pounds, this is a heavy machine, and it's not something you'd want in your backpack all the time, unless your work absolutely demands it. And despite its 99.9 watt-hour battery, I'm only getting around 4 hours of general use, consisting of web browsing and streaming video and battery saver mode using Optimus. So it is necessary to keep the large 280 watt power brick with you. The weight and the battery life makes this laptop better suited as a desktop replacement rather than an everyday carry. Ultimately, this is an incredible machine and one of the most powerful gaming laptops money can buy. But this specific configuration is a victim of diminishing returns. Considering you can still get great performance in 1080p by instead opting for an i7 with a 3070 in the GE76 or a competitor for up to $1,000 cheaper, I would instead recommend a lower configuration for the majority of people, especially if your main focus is gaming, unless you need the absolute best of the best in terms of performance and money is not a factor.